Joined by head coach Mike Clark of Bridgewater College football. They were picked number 3 in this year's ODAC Preseason Poll. Coach, let's jump right into your offense and talk about you've got 2 all-conference guys back, including your quarterback, or in addition to your quarterback, Willie Logan, but you've got running back Jacob Wright, who was a second-teamer last year. You've got a first-team lineman and Kyle Keister. Talk a little bit about what you expect out of those 3 gentlemen for this year.
Well, I think in Willie Logan, we have a young man for the first time since really 2009 or 2008. You know, Bridgewater has gone through an off season, and we're going into a camp. We know who our quarterback's going to be. I think in terms of, I'm all about competition. I think that's made people better. It has a chance to make people better, but there's something about having stability at that position. I think going into he's a guy that stands for the right things in the locker room. He works very, very hard. And I think he's a quarterback that has the arm strength to keep the field stretched, but he has the feet to beat you with it, running the football too. And I really think as the year progressed a year ago, and J.D. Shaw, our new offensive coordinator, we really kind of got acclimated to what Willie does well. And really when you look at those last 4 games of the season, I don't know that there was a more productive quarterback in the league.
Continuing with your playmakers, they're looking at who's going to catch the ball from Willie Logan. Who do you expect to be your lead wide receivers this year?
Well, in the end, a year ago, we really were piecemeal on our wide receivers, and that we had a couple injuries, the season-ending injuries. We had a disciplinary suspension that we lost a very good player, for the season. Those people are all back right now. A year ago, the kid that caught 6 touchdown passes for us was a high school defensive end 2 years ago, and so we really had to piecemeal it. I think the good thing we have is we're going to have speed. We're going to give people matchup problems on the perimeter. We also use the tight ends. A year ago we had 3 tight ends that caught 66 footballs. I think you could go at any level in college football and not see that. And certainly to have that threat right there in the middle of the field, it's a matchup issue for people. And I think the key to us offensively is going to see being able to ID what defenses are trying to defend us one-on-one and where they're trying to do it, and then try to attack those spots.
Switching sides to the defensive side of the ball. Now, we'll start off with a couple players that you need to replace that are right there on the interior of your line. You have Joel Francis, who was the ODAC Defensive Player of the Year last year, and you have Danny Grogg, who was his partner there for 3 or 4 years on your line. Talk about what your plan is right now to replace them in your front 4. Well,
I think the way our team is in general is a year ago we had security on the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. We had to rebuild the umbrellas, the perimeter people. This year it's just the opposite. There's no question Joel Francis was a great player. Danny Grogg really wasn't far behind. He just happened to be next to Joel Francis, and we're an even front defense, and we had 2 guys that on a regular basis took 3 people, the 2 offensive guards in the center, and beat them up pretty good. And do the math, we have them outnumbered everywhere else. I don't know that you replace those type of kids player for player. We haven't tapped into the free agent market to see what's out there. It's what you're going to try to develop, and really we only return 1 starter on the defensive line, and John Brilliant, and I really think we're going to have to reload and rebuild that by committee. What I'm hoping we have going for us there is Joel Francis and Danny Grogg, they had 4 defensive line coaches. They had a new coach every year. I returned Roberto Pinella at that position, and I'm hoping the savvy and the experience that he brings to it will make young kids mature quickly.
If we stretch out to the rest of your defense now, it's led by Andrew Palmer, who was a first-team linebacker last year, but you also have your complete secondary back from a season ago. Talk about maybe the help that umbrella gives your front 4 there to really develop in those first 3 games before you get into conference play.
Well, I think what they can do is they can run and tackle. Now, the question, if they're running tackling people for 6-7 yard gains, that'll still end up getting you beat. But I think we're looking a lot out of Andrew Palmer. People don't realize he played 6 games on 1 leg last year. He had a bad ankle that really never got better, and still was a player that was able to play sideline to sidelines and make plays. But I do think this, a year ago we had freshmen and sophomores on the umbrella on defense. Now they're sophomores and juniors. It's not a union shop. There's no guarantee that just being a year older makes you better, but most of the kids that played those positions, they had off seasons where they invested, and my hope is that they're going to come back, and they're going to have to be players. I think good teams have players that are capable of making other people around them better, and that's going to happen to us on both sides of the ball.
As we looked over the past 8 years, really the parity has started to grow in the conference. Bridgewater was the last team to win back-to-back titles, let alone the 5 in a row that you won from 2001 through 2005. But since then, we haven't had a back-to-back winner. It's been 7 seasons since then that we've had a different champion each of the year. And then you look at this year's preseason poll, and the top 4 are separated by just 4 points, and you've got 2 teams tied for 5, and then the rest of the teams all have ability on it. Talk a little bit about the parity in the league right now and why it's been so difficult for a team that, even when returning a lot of their program, has found difficulty in becoming a back-to-back champion.
Well, I think the coaching in the league's very good. I think you got teams that are well schemed. They study each other. I think you see, just even from a facility point of view, you've had people that have made commitments to athletics and in football in particular, and that helps you in the recruiting process. And I think what happens if you ever do get on those runs, they kind of feed off themselves, because with playoff experience, you're really getting extra practice, and it just kind of build on itself. But I don't think there's any question. We had playoff caliber teams in 2006 and 7 that made it. I think our 2010 team had the ability to make it and just fell a little bit short. But I don't know. You never say it's never going to happen again, but certainly it's going to be much, much more difficult. If you'll remember, there was a period back there when we were on our run where really it was us and Hampton-Sydney, and everybody else, you would have had to work to screw up 2 of those games. One of them might have snuck up on you, but there were 5 other teams in the league that weren't at our level. And I think that's not the case anymore. And I think particularly you look at like this year, 6 of the 8 teams returned quality quarterbacks, the most important position on the field. They're bringing people back that are not just returning starters, they're good players. Shenandoah is one of those teams that doesn't, but a year ago they really were very, very good on defense. They just couldn't get out of their way on offense. But I do think you got to expect the same thing. That's good and it's bad. It's good in that one game isn't going to be a death sentence. It's bad that you never get a day off. Ask Pedro when he comes in here next. He and I both let games get away from us against Guilford. Who was a young but athletic and talented team. And if we control those 2 games, we're playing for championships in week 9, but that wasn't the case. And so I think the team that's going to make it this year in the ODAC will be the team that can just consistently perform, and understand once you hit that week 5 where it's conference games for the next 7, you don't get a weekend off. And our kids are going to we're a poor man's NFL, and you got to kind of accept that.
Well, Coach, I want to thank you for joining us today, and good luck this season.
Thank you.